So hello, my name's Rob, this is Cat Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and today I'm going to show you how I've been doing this kind of dirty metal technique. Had a lot of people ask me about this. Started off as a bit of fun, just messing around, and I kind of thought, actually, I think I'm onto something here, and it's been a lot of fun. I was kindly donated these Chaos Knight parts by my friend, and I've just been painting up individual little sections, and at this rate we'll probably have a full night by the end of next year. But it's really easy. There is an exception to stuff I would normally use. Normally I use Citadel stuff only, but I do have a little bit of a secret ingredient this time. The colours we're going to be using today are Agrax Earthshade. We're going to be using leadbelcher. These go really good straight off the bat for just making colours quite dirty and things. We're going to be using Nihliak Oxide, which is a technical paint. We're going to be using Ryza Rust, which is a dry paint. We're going to be using some Athonian Camoshade, and then I've got this, which is Vallejo Wash. It's a rust. I tend to accumulate all these odd little bits, and I really want to start playing around with this. I'd used some on Necromunda terrain before, and it works really well. So the first thing we need to do is prime our piece. Here I've just used leadbelcher spray. Nothing fancy whatsoever, I have just sprayed it. Now, if you do want any markings or anything like that on your piece, then I would advise doing it now, because we're going to dirty over the top of it. So just any stripes and things like that, do that section now. So I've got my chaperone stripes on, and the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to apply Agrax Earthshade. This is for pretty much all over. Don't worry if it's too thin, if it's too thick. It's those little unnatural inconsistencies that are going to really bring this piece to life. You can wash it on like I'm doing here. You can just stipple it, stab it. What we want are little patches to appear, because then what we're going to come in with is just a bit of a wet brush like I'm doing now, and I'm just going to stipple round where the shade has pulled and things like that, because we want that to dry in a really kind of unnatural type of fashion. So as you can see here, this is how it's looking. Very similar principle. What we're now going to do with leadbelcher is, where the shade isn't as thick, we're just going to start stippling with our brush, just really erratic. Try not to think too much about it. There's no rhyme or reason or anything like that. These are all scuff marks, scratches, dinks and things like that. So just using where the shade has kind of darkened between, use it as a bit of a guide and work your way around that. Little short stabbing motions, lines, anything you want. It's all gonna build up to make a really kind of cool piece, but just keep working it and go as much as you want with stuff like this. Next up, we're just going to go back to Agrax Earthshade, and then what we're going to do is just round by where we've just applied our leadbelcher. We're just going to, with a bit of water already on our brush, we're just going to start putting it around it, just to knock the brightness of the leadbelcher back, concentrating on things like the edges here and stuff like that, and just making sure that I'm quite happy with how bright those metal sections are. You can also use this stage as well to kind of, any splodges that you've got from the Agrax Earthshade, you can actually make darker with this, and it will almost blend itself. Because you're using it with water, it's a bit more runnier, it spreads out a little bit more, and it dries patchy, which in this instance is perfect for what we want. Also, you can see here I'm just using my finger, just wipe away any bits that you're not happy with. It's all going to build up texture, it's all going to add to it, so don't worry too much about it. Next up, Athonian Camoshade. Now this is, I guess, a bit of a secret weapon, adding greens and things like that. Same again, I'm just stippling around the edges and like the little nuts, bolts, rivets, anything like that, and I'm just kind of darkening those darker bits down even more, if you will, especially around the edges and things like that, and just adding this really subtle kind of splash of green. Just seems to really work at selling that kind of grimy, horrible metal. The application here is the same as we've just done with Agrax Earthshade, except for this time I'm not using any water just yet. I put the Athonian Camoshade on, and then what I actually do is I come back and I just feather it out with a bit of a drier brush. So as you can see here, I'm just then going to feather that out just in little stabbing motions. And really I'm having a lot of fun while doing these methods actually, and it's really easy to do. But just keep tapping it out. You can, you know, brush it, add a bit of water, dilute it down, and it just helps sell it. You probably could use some other colours as well, things like Druchii Violet, Drakenhof Nightshade, just to kind of almost give that heat bloomed, worn, stressed metal effect. But I thought the Athonian was really good. Next up, this is the Vallejo Wash Rust. Now this is almost like a it's like an oil wash. It's really it's got a really thick, deep orange colour to it, and with this it just kind of spreads itself naturally. So what I tend to do is I dump it down in little piles, and then I do just kind of let it do its thing. On spots like this, you know, where I really want some rust, I really pull it up together, and then anything else I just kind of leave it to do its own business really. It's a fantastic little wash this is, and it does so much of the hard work and heavy lifting, but I'm just kind of working it around and just making sure that I'm happy with how it's settled, and it's almost following that natural pattern that we've made in the using the washes and things like that. If you do want it to be really orangey and rusty, you can do like I'm doing here. I've got a really good amount of it on my brush, and I'm just kind of working it through certain rivets and things like that around the edge of this little panel here. Once again, I'm using my finger to wash off anything I don't like or I'm not happy with. Just using your finger just helps you kind of get that texture, if you will, build up on these pieces. That's really what this is an exercise in building up texture and selling that effect on a bit of plastic. Next up, Nihliak Oxide. Same again here. I don't like using this straight out the pot, so I always make sure that my brush is damp before I put it on. But really, once again, as you can see here, I've completed this little, I don't even know what this is, little section thing of just Retributor armor, and I have put a little bit of a wash over it. And all I'm going to do now is just going to keep wetting my brush, and I'm just going to keep feathering it out, using my finger to wipe it away, and just making sure that I'm happy with how it's looking. Then it's just a case of coming in with some leadbelcher on these top bits, and just kind of little scratches, dinks, highlights. I find rather than lines and that crisp highlight style, little erratic, short stabbing highlights. And that is the completed piece. As you can see, it's pretty easy to do. There are a few steps towards it, but mostly it's just having a lot of fun with it, and kind of in those early stages being messy, and you know, encouraging the washes to pull in a certain way. If you want to, you could kind of thin down some scrag brown and streak out some rust streaks from the rivets and things like this. But that's all there is, you know, to it. It's not a hard thing to do. You know, you can always come back in with more. Like here, I've kind of thinking actually I want a bit of a rust spot over here, so I'm just kind of following that unnatural pattern where our wash has dried, and I'm just using that as a bit of a guide. So, you know, stipple on your washes, make it look all inconsistent. That's the key here, and then just paint around the gaps in it. But that's it. This was a fun one to do actually. Really enjoyed doing this one. If you've got any comments, any help, anything like that, then do let us know in the comments below. I'll see you all next time. God bless and take care.